Welcome back. I'm here with Roger Jones, who is a mentor of mine. He's the CEO and founder of the Recognized Authority Formula, and he's based in London, UK. Roger, maybe if you could take a few seconds to introduce yourself, I'd love to hear about your career and how you've kind of gotten to your current point and in an overview of your business.
Yeah, sure, Eric. I'll give you a quick potted history. And if you say I'm the founder of what I call the Recognized Authority Formula, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a few moments. But I didn't start off my career in consulting. Let me make that perfectly clear. I was an accidental consultant, but I'll come to that. I started off life as a geologist in West Africa for about 4, 5, 6 years. Well, yeah, 6 years almost. I loved traveling on helicopters, meeting people. I got bored looking at rocks, which is not good if you're a geologist. So I transitioned into business by doing that classic thing of taking an MBA, and then did what I enjoy, which is work in international business and international marketing. But then I got to a point, I was thinking, is this it? Am I going to have a corporate career all my life? And I always had a bit of an entrepreneurial sort of inclination. I always worked for sort of entrepreneurial companies. So I just jumped out without a business plan, did everything I advised my clients not to do without really, sure, I had a bit of a financial cushion. And I started off my own consulting business.
Yep.
And the first few years, I was an absolute disaster, a very successful disaster for the first few years. I even started looking at job adverts to go back into the corporate world. But then I started to track what successful consultants and coaches did that were different to others. And I started to replicate it. But and by doing that, I became more successful. I became a best-selling author, contributor to Harvard Business Review, INSEAD of Knowledge. And I managed, not easily, it took effort, to get in to see the CEOs of large corporate companies. And my peers at the time started to say, well, Roger, how do you do that? How do you get in to see them so easily? How do you charge premium fees? And I gladly gave my advice to them. And then around the time of lockdown in 2020, I thought, well, I've enjoyed my consulting career and my CEO advisory career. I'm going to start something new. And it was then that I launched the Recognized Authority Formula. And today I help consultants, coaches worldwide become recognized authorities in their markets and have what I call a trusted pipeline of conversations with their corporate decision makers without selling. So that's a long, short, potted history.
No, I think that's a really good overview. And I certainly found myself advising clients to take the plunge. Some of them ask, how do you go independent? I want to start my own, niche practice or boutique practice. And you're right. I mean, the first few years, it's tough. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but the only way you're really going to learn business is by doing business. Or that, you went through an MBA program. My sister just went through one, and she just started her own business. And now she's asking me a lot of these questions that I was like, they didn't teach you that in MBA school. They didn't teach you about incorporation or IP protection or, anyway, it's one of those things you have to learn by doing. And yes, a credential gets you, opens doors and gets you a great network, but you've really pounded the pavement and seen it through your client's eyes as a business owner. I imagine that you can empathize with them. And more importantly, I think you also, one of the reasons why I have great respect for you and really see you as a mentor is that you have the ability to be an autodidact, that you have the ability to lean into the market and change. And I think any good practitioner has to do this, but really listening to what you're hearing and saying, maybe I should do more of that and get more experience in that area and evolve over time. And I think that's something that both a lot of clients get stuck with and a lot of consultants also get stuck with, is that they kind of have one thing they just keep hammering on, whether it's a good nail or not.
I think the biggest lesson that all particularly newer consultants and even coaches make is forget your expertise. That's just part of your credentials. You've got to align your expertise to an acute problem that your clients have. And if you do that, you're going to start to generate conversations, and business happens in conversations. So that's the key thing, keep keep refining your expertise, but make sure it's applicable to client problems. And you haven't got to just be up to date with your area of expertise. You've got to be totally up to date with the types of problems that you can solve. And that's what many consultants don't think about.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hear you. Like I feel like you have to really listen to your clients and what they're telling you is the problem, and then you have to really research what that is. I find myself getting into more corporate accountability and governance projects because they're saying we don't have someone that can do that, and we would love to have better governance, better board hygiene and things like that. And so that's how I actually got introduced to one of my current clients was that sort of just testing the market, catching. I mean, I think you've done a really good job of, you call it a trusted pipeline, how you really have to make sure your network is in the loop and that you're checking in with them and consulting, right? Or you're having a bilateral partnership with any client or any customer. Were there any particular examples that caused you to decide to start your own practice, or that you had an aha moment that said, maybe I should actually begin in the business of more helping practitioners themselves succeed versus being, a client, serving clients directly?
Well, for me, it was the entrepreneurial drive. And I always thought it'd be great to pivot the business and try something new that I could leverage. I could have a global presence. And that was a driving force. But also, I think it was important for me, but I think it's important for everyone to look at what really drives you as an individual. And what really has been driving me all the way through school days to today is simply helping people succeed and opening up their blind spots when relevant to help them succeed. So when I created the recognized authority formula, that was the key tenet of the business, rather than just, doing a template marketing business and then hoping they'll succeed on the back of it, which I know, I'm not knocking others, but I know others do it.
Right.
But I think that's probably helped by the fact that
Yep.
I've also studied clinical organizational psychology at INSEAD, so I understand what drives people. And if you can change someone's mindset, particularly when they're new in the professional services world or the solo professional services world, it's really going to help them. Because I think lots of the initial challenges a consultant has, and also repeated challenges they have moving forward, aren't always to do with the marketing of their service. It's often to do with their mindset. So there's a bit of a mindset refresh, particularly in the transition, as well as understanding what the key levers are to actually grow your business. So I don't know whether that makes sense. I can't even remember the question I was answering, but hey ho, there's an answer.
Well, why? Yeah, how you said just start your own practice, but
Yeah.
I mean, you work more in the advisory practices for consulting professionals themselves, and I work in product strategy and advisory. But we have some of the same issues that it's. I often tell people it's not about us; it's about your client, and I think you've said the same. To when we've been on calls together, that it's never about you, and that you should be adapting your services to match that. But it's always a you got to put some stakes in the ground. You got to have some case studies. You got to have some clear wins so that people know what you do, and it's not everything. But trying to add tools to your toolkit, and then when it makes sense, I think you mentioned that when it's relevant to help your client find their blind spots, or be that sort of objective observer on the wall and say, hey, I'm noticing something here. Would you like some feedback on this? And that's sort of those critical pieces where you get, you drive a lot of value, and you really help the clients get out of their own head or out of their own, see things from a different point of view and say, oh, I hadn't really thought about that way. That's a good point. And that's what you see. It really clicks.
Now, I was going to say there's a couple of things sort of attached with the blind spots. I would say one of them, what I see often with some clients, is they start, particularly when times are tough for them. And, you may see this, in your work as well. They develop what I'd probably call a scarcity mindset. And as soon as that sets into someone, their business tends to take a tumble downwards, is one thing. And what many
Oh
also
yeah.
do on a far more pragmatic level is they're not thinking about the blind spots attached with their messaging. So, for example, I had a client not so
Mhm.
long ago who was so set up. They had this fantastic program to engage employees, and it was a great program, but no one was buying it.
Mhm.
So the blind spot was around messaging and not thinking what was
Right.
that core issue they could solve. And it's actually an absolutely superb
Mhm.
offering to help implement strategies, to get buy-in for strategies. So
Mhm.
it's a matter of pivoting the messaging to make it far more attractive and
Mhm.
packaging it in such a way that someone wanted to hear about it and see how they can implement their strategies. So it's the blind spots come out very often in different ways for people.
Oh, I've certainly seen it myself. With you talk about the scarcity mindset versus the mindset of abundance, and I've seen VPs and corporate executives really sell the long term strategy to juice the quarterly earnings results, and I've also seen the startup founder tell a bigger, more compelling story up front to get funding, knowing that what the investor wants to hear, but knowing in actuality that what they have to implement is going to take a lot longer. And so you see that sort of scarcity mindset manifest itself in how your clients often run their business, and they don't necessarily even notice they're doing it. And so that's often a challenge where you're saying, yes, I have a client, right now that is going through a fundraising round. The investor says we need a bigger number, and I said, you have a single digit number of high ticket sales. You can build the model to say whatever you want it to say. Like, any good investor is going to know that that's completely theoretical until you have more sales under your belt and you have a clear pipeline of conversions.
Mm.
Otherwise, it's just numbers on a slide, right, or numbers in an Excel sheet. I think helping your clients take the long view and really thinking, okay, you're in a marathon, not a sprint. Are you really
Mm.
selling your last mile to juice your sprint, your lap time? And often they are. So I mean, was there anything about the recognized authority formula name that really rang out to you or was really compelling for you?
It was basically feedback from clients. They thought it was more
Mm.
appropriate. They thought they wanted to become recognized authorities in their market, the go-to expert. They didn't want just to have a trusted pipeline. They wanted recognition in their niche. The
Mm.
process I have is in effect a formula, which if you follow the formula, you've got all the ingredients in the formula, it will work. You will get to your end game. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm not selling a quick fix solution.
Yep.
Because it's a formula, you can take a few of these ingredients, you can take more of those ingredients, maybe a few less of those, because I think it's well, just in your work, you've got to meet clients where they are. So some people may need the full formula, some may need little bits of it to get to their end game. So the key
Yep.
is always to meet a client
Right.
where they are, whether they're just starting or
Yep.
maybe some clients have got 20 years experience, if not longer, and they want a complete refresh, a rethink, mix and match it depending on what the client particularly needs.
Right. And I think that totally makes sense that I think you even coached me and coached a lot of your clients to have their own operating model and have their own formula, but you don't have to apply it, carte blanche or one size fits all to every client, nor should you. I mean, I think most clients can tell when they're being solely off the shelf framework or a framework that hasn't been adapted to them, right? That
Mm.
you're putting them through a process. We will fix your business in 30 days, and turn it into a $1 million pipeline kind of hucksterism that when you're in the business of advisory services or, building your reputation, a brand in the space, that it can't happen in 30 days. That's silly, right? Or I wouldn't trust
Yes.
someone who's telling me that.
Yeah, no, we've all come across them. It's the quick fix solution. Pay me the money and I'll
Band-aid.
solve your problem. That happens with certain more dubious management consultants as well. But the bottom line is there's probably a root cause that the client and the consultant doesn't realize early on, which you've really got to attack. So that quick fix doesn't
Yeah.
typically doesn't work. Unless you go to the dentist because you've got a
Right.
toothache and they've just got to pull the tooth, that's a quick remedy.
Yeah.
Takes 20 minutes, but that really happens with a company, particularly a medium or larger size company. As you've got to align whatever you're doing. The key is always to align whatever you're doing to that firm's long-term strategy as well. So you're helping them succeed, even if you're solving a particular challenge they've got in one area of the business, but that one area of the business is part of the cog in that greater sort of entity, which needs to be resolved to
Right.
actually, as say, accomplish their strategy. So what you say there is very true.
Yeah, I mean, you basically said it as well. There's no quick fixes or tooth pulls. Most corporate strategy problems are interrelated. There's many different planks that need to be replaced in the ship, and so I spend a majority of my time asking more questions than giving advice, and it's more about understanding. Have you thought? What's your strategy around this? Have you thought about this trend? Have you, what's your approach for this threat, right? And then from there, you do your own research and you come back and say, okay, well, based on what I've heard, you're great here. You could be a little bit better here, and this thing's on fire. You probably want to focus on that first, and then that becomes into a blueprint or a roadmap of how to help the client in a customized way. But speaking of clients, who would you say the recognized authority formula is for, or who's kind of like the ideal person that should go through this program?
I'd say there are two target audiences. The primary one is a corporate consultant, solo corporate consultant. They can be a boutique firm. I work with boutique professional service firms as well. Has had their business probably for a couple of years. They started it with, thinking I was going to be absolutely fantastic and earn more than I did in the corporate environment within the first, 6 months and all the rest of it. But then suddenly find it's a bit of a struggle. Mm-hmm. They're going from feast to famine. They're not getting the traction they thought they would. They suddenly realize that they've actually got to make some steps beyond just going out to get business or in a traditional way. And maybe they've tried a few programs of others and they just haven't worked for them. But fundamentally, that's not their fault. It's what we were saying before. Some people are selling quick fix solutions. And for that group, they've got a number of sort of challenges that they have, which is really to take the courage and refresh their thinking, some of them actually refresh their target market is as well, and the problem they solve. And then there's another group, a smaller group, that seems to be getting bigger, probably because of the economy, corporate executives jumping out to set up their own thing. And they've thought maybe they've had, 20, 25 years experience thinking, well, is this it? What's next? I'm not going to make it to that corner office I always aspired to. So what can I do instead? And then I've got another group of clients who were highly successful female leaders in corporations who decided to opt out to have a family. And now the family is such that maybe they're, early teenagers as an example, where they've got more free time and they want more of a part-time business they can actually integrate around their family life as well. But the biggest chunk of clients are those who have had their business a couple of years. And what I find is whether I'm working with a client in, Australia, the Middle East, somewhere in Europe, or somewhere in the States or South America, all the challenges are basically the same. It comes down to some real fundamentals that they have. The biggest problem they have, as I mentioned, they don't have a trusted pipeline. So they're stressing out when they don't. Yeah. But when that's the first thing someone needs to solve, actually.
No, I completely agree that you have to build the pipeline first for you to have a reliable closure of sales in a reasonable amount of time, so it's not feast and famine. And I think you're also you're tapping into a market that I'm seeing this as well. A lot more women are joining, going independent or starting their own firms because they have untapped wealth of expertise and information. And I think more people are demanding that flexibility. Like, I want to be able to see my kids grow up, and I don't want to have to pay absorbent amount for childcare and not be around them because I'm at work all the time. And so I see women, and men as well, also doing this just to spend more time with their school age children to say, be there for them. And I think that's a really important piece when you're thinking about starting your own firm, or even knowing when your clients are juggling a lot of different roles and wearing a lot of different hats. And so I always try to be creative about how can we meet on your terms that makes it easier and less stressful for you, right? Is it better on a Friday afternoon when all the home office work is done and the kids are off at activities and this is your chance to relax? Or would you prefer a Monday morning meeting to get your week kind of situated for, the plan for the week? So it really kind of depends on what your clients want. What kind of results do you see when someone goes through your program? Are there particular benchmarks or goals, idealized goals that they achieve?
Oh, without doubt. And again, obviously it depends on the individual. And I've been refining the formula over the past few years. So now I will guarantee results for the client. That means I don't take every client on, and they've got to be prepared to invest in their business. And the result I will guarantee is they will build a trusted pipeline. During the program I do with them, they will have a minimum of 7 conversations with their ideal corporate decision maker. And that could be a chief executive of a firm. It could be a C-level executive. Mm-hmm. So that's a tangible result that people want. They want a system. It gives them confidence so they can have a conversation with a decision maker interested in the problem they solve when they want it. So that's, as I say, removes anxiety about the future. The other results clients achieve, for some of them, it's clarity as well. They're now clear about who they're actually targeting. There was probably a bit of a cloud of fog for them in the past.
Right.
For many, they haven't even thought about how they're going to be positioned in the marketplace, because everyone has competition. We may be, we're all unique in some way, but they haven't thought through where they are compared to their competition, or indeed where they are compared to the client actually doing whatever it is they need solved themselves, which is a big competitor for many. And then another outcome is, clients love a process. The corporate clients, they want to know there's a well thought through process. Many haven't put one together. So what I do in the program, we create a visual framework for their process. It's like a visual value proposition.
Yep, I heard.
So that's another outcome. And the other one for many is simply their fees. Like, they're not charging what they're worth. And I always think, and this was my problem as well when I was in the early years of my consulting business, the value perception. I was thinking, this is a lot of money to charge. What are they going to say to this? And the penny dropped for me in about, I think, probably year 3 of my consulting business, when I was talking to this big global US tech firm, and the client said, Roger, how much would it be to do this? Can you give me a real broad figure? And I gave them the figure, and they said, oh, that's very reasonable, meaning you're not charging enough. And that client very graciously allowed.
Right. If there's no pushback, then you might
go back to them with a realistic fee, so that they get the business improvement, the clients, and indeed, a couple of them have been published in well-known business journals as well as a result of the process. So, there's been a lot of outcomes. The key tangible is they're going to have a trusted pipeline of conversations with ideal decision makers.
Right. My chief of staff badgers me to do 10 outreaches a week. right? It's just to people in my network to catch up with them, and that's the right amount for me. But I know you can supercharge that by working with your program, and I really appreciate how you have a wonderful way of drawing out your process. There's a lovely like a whiteboarding app that you use with your clients to kind of help them develop their own process.
Yeah. I keep it simple. For me, I just use an iPad with Notability attached to it, so I can, show things.
Notability, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, I've got one client who uses Miro, Miro, to draw things out in a quite a structured
Yep.
way.
I,
But
I
I
do that.
also think that if you've got a visual model of some sort, simply drawing it by hand, if you're in a face-to-face with a client, is extremely powerful, because by doing that, you are literally
Yeah.
drawing the client in as you draw your model. So I don't, although tech is of value, particularly in this virtual,
Right.
good old-fashioned
Good
pen
old-fashioned pen
and
and paper.
paper can be just as good to do this.
And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier that, clients want to feel seen and feel like they're getting their money's worth, that it's a customized, customized framework with quality time with a professional in the space. They don't want a boilerplate slide that they're being shoehorned through. If you don't charge high enough fees, sometimes you're actually sending the market signal that your advice isn't worth as much. So I've seen some very early consultants or very early solo practitioners come out the gate with I think, fairly low bill rate. And I'm saying it actually might hurt your credibility to say, I'm only a little bit more than you would pay off of, Indeed or Upwork platform. Like, you should probably put some more credibility stakes in the ground. Have some shareable, collateral or things that you can just show some value. But you absolutely charge what you think will be both satisfactory for both you and the client. That you both have to feel like you're getting your time and money's worth. And it's negotiation. I've certainly flexible on payment terms and rates if my client is a nonprofit or if they have a great pipeline but they're struggling a little bit with cash flow. We can usually work things out and being a little bit flexible, but having some backstops or saying, this wouldn't work for both of us. You're not willing to put in the work. I see that with a lot of personal trainers too. Hey, I want to get fit and look like a gym model. It's like, okay, well, you got to start eating right. You got to put the work in the the reps in the gym. And if you're not willing to do that, I can't help you. Right. So I've had to walk away from potential clients because they can't stick to the plan or stick to the meetings that we've kind of put in place. So it's challenging. I mean, it's a dance on both sides, or both sides have to be willing partners.
No, that's very true. Fundamentally, what you're saying, earlier about establishing your credibility early on is going to help you charge market rate fees, i.e., it could be a piece of thought leadership.
Yeah, it's market rate.
Now, I don't always recommend opinion pieces because it's just your opinion. But when you're starting out, you've probably got an awful lot of experience to draw on. Not that you're going to reveal confidential things about past employees, but you've got thinking behind whatever it is you're doing.
Right.
And you can give that away because you're going to tell people the why and the what, but they're going to pay you for the how you do it. And even if they know how you do it, they're still going to need your services as the guide. It's the same as my work. Someone could sit down, intellectually think through what I do. They could get my book on Amazon. Lots of why and what, not all the how, but someone could sit down, work it all out. But then it's probably going to take them 5 to 10 years to actually succeed rather than 90 days on a program. But the same for you in your work, same for a new consultant. They're paying for you for the implementation. And always bear that in mind. But going back to the fundamental point of pricing, have the courage to charge the market rates. And if you get pushback, then you can be creative. Maybe it's creative in how people pay, or maybe you say, well,
Yeah.
it's gonna cost you 10 units for the first project. However, if we do a second project valued
Right.
at 20 units within 6 months, you'll get a 4 unit reduction on
Yep.
credit. You can be creative, and companies like
Right.
that. And if you're dealing with some
Oh, for sure.
companies, they can't resist a little bit of a reduction if they pay everything up front.
Mhm.
So you can try that as well. So it's a
Yep.
matter of creativity, but fundamentally, someone will not get pushback on price, or is less likely to get pushback on fees and pricing levels if they're clearly articulating the value that they deliver upfront. Because once you've done that, and they see what you're going to create for that organization as a result, your fees should look relatively
Mhm.
negligible. So if the problem's costing them, I don't know, 1,000 units, and you're only charging them 100, it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Clients certainly appreciate customized proposals catered to their needs. I've had many executives tell me, "Hey, I don't have budget this quarter, but I have a lot of budget coming online next quarter or next year. Can we structure the payment terms to reflect that reality?" Absolutely, right? Or if you can get a discount ahead of maybe budget is expiring at the end of the year, and I need to get money out the door. Can I pay you up front? Absolutely. Like those are two different tacks that you really have to just ask your client what is your cash flow look like, or what is your what do you have at your disposal now and later. But then I think to your earlier point that pricing so that they see the value that they're unlocking by working with you often reframes it, value-based pricing versus competitor-driven matching or cost plus rates is not how you should be pricing. It's I'm going to be unlocking this much value for you at a pretty reduced, pretty reasonable rate in relation to that number. Then clients are like, okay, I see this as an investment. It's not a earlier like a Band-Aid or quick fix. This is a ongoing relationship that you're investing in my success. Right? I'm investing in your success. And I always try to tell clients, I'm here to make you shine. I'm here to make you look good. So like I don't succeed unless you succeed. And that usually helps them realize that, I need someone in my corner to really get me to the next level and say, I'm great at this. I can be better at this. And I want to do this. I can't do it now, but I want to get that skill to be on stage, right? Or be more comfortable in the boardroom and those sorts of things. Like, I think that's something both of our clients share, is just trying to have a better presence and how do you advocate for yourself better. What's the aha moment that you've seen where people realize they need your help? Is there like, a certain light bulb moment that comes up?
Good question. Again, depends so much on the individual. It's probably, I don't know if aha moment's the right word, but it's a growing sense of frustration. That, they know they're good at what they do. They know they can deliver great work, but they're not getting the quality of work that they want, and they're feeling really frustrated by this. So not so much of an aha moment, but thinking, how can I do better? Who can help me get to the point where I can get better at doing this? So that's that I'd say is that the aha moment. But if I could pass the question over to you, Eric, in your work, how do clients come to you after before with an aha moment and think, I've got to call Eric, or what is it for you?
I can think of two. So one is usually we tried doing a product launch and it flopped. Right? We didn't do enough of the investment to build that pipeline to get people energized and excited about our product. They didn't even know that we were launching it. So kind of more on the marketing side of like we launched it and then they did not come. We built it and they did not come. So that's usually one pathway in for my clients. And then the other one is I've inherited a team, or I'm starting to doubt what my team is telling me is reality. It could be like I work with a lot of VPs of product, VPs of strategy, and sometimes their technical teams say, we need to, build a crypto offering, and we need to build the spaceship and do all these fancy, widgets on our website. And the VP of product's kind of like, we're a bicycle company. We're not really in the crypto market. Or the CEO can often be the shower thought. I've been tasked with implementing a shower thought to a bicycle company. And how do I manage that friction to tell the CEO, like, this is we should have a response to it, but we don't necessarily pivot the entire ship based on a single conversation with them. I've seen the CEOs, single conversation with one investor. We need to change our brand strategy. We need to change our image. We need to change our product portfolio. And I'm like, whoa, time out. Like, that's a very big one-way door decision. Are you really getting that strong of a market signal to do so? Or was it just a conversation over dinner? And that's a data point, but it's not a reason to wholesale uproot your strategy just because one person, maybe you respect their opinion, but didn't react the way you expect. If it was 9 out of 10 conversations, yeah, absolutely, we need to work on that. But if it's just one, I often can help clients find their bearings and say, no, this is our North Star. These are our principles. This is our mission for existing. We can't really deviate from that, or else we lose credibility. And so when I often onboard clients or in my enrollment process, I always, if they don't have it, I really work with them to create a mission statement and create a set of shared values amongst the organization. What do we all stand for? Because I deal with a lot of executive friction, a lot of cultural friction. And if you can get everyone to agree on the principles and the why you're doing it, then the what you're doing becomes a lot more natural. Like, yeah, this helps our clients do this mission, or this helps us live by the values we set out when starting this firm or continuing to build this firm. This feels right to me, versus I call it chasing shiny objects. We got to have a response to, AI. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, AI is going to be there. It's not a train leaving the station, but it's a more measured approach to a new tool than cavorting the whole. I've seen companies rename themselves an AI, everything platform. I'm like, well, are you experts in AI, guys? You should absolutely use it, but but you're not an AI company.
Well, what would you say for your clients then causes the what you call the shiny object syndrome? Is it lack of confidence in their strategy or not having a strategy?
I would say it's often more the latter than the former. I think companies that have thought about strategy, and especially more senior executives and seasoned executives, know that this is, you're spending maybe a quarter of planning for the next 2 to 3 years. You can't really plan too much further than that. And strategy is not a plan, it's a collection of plans. If this revealed information, I'll often work with a client to identify points in the calendar where information is revealed, right? So that's quarterly earnings, you're going to miss or hit them. Or that's economic data coming out of the EU or coming out of the Fed, right? And at this point, we will know whether the winds have changed. And I work with them I worked with some industry associations to really test the market and see what are those, what is the litmus test, or what is the market saying? And so then they can start to come ahead of the trends. I say, don't chase the cars, have the cars chase you. And I imagine for your clients also, that's you don't want to be launching a piece of thought capital every week, just chasing the shiny objects. You want to have a longer term view as a practitioner of, you don't need a reaction to everything Sam Altman or Elon Musk does. You need a principled strategy for going to market in the most natural way you can.
Very true.
To bend to the whims of TikTok or LinkedIn. Can you give me an example of a client, anonymize it, that was struggling in their business and what you did to help?
One in particular who had their business for 10, 12 years, I think. And they were really frustrated with the level of work they were getting when I first spoke to them. That was the first thing they actually said. They were very honest and open normally you've got to warm someone up before you find a real reason they want to talk. And they were, they had a product type offering, it's productized, which was selling, but wasn't giving them much sense of fulfillment. And what they wanted to do
Right.
was realign their services to make them far more relevant to chief executives, to get their ear. It's an area of strategy formulation where they work in quite a specialist area. And so we put in, well, first of all, we thought, what's their real professional genius? What are they good at? And how does it align to this area of strategy that they thought they were involved in? They weren't really involved in it. So we realigned the offering around that. And then we put a process in for them to actually start to meet their chief executives, which is all around creating original thought leadership with them, and then feeding back to them their findings, and then presenting the solution to this problem that their findings reveal. So they actually got to meet 37 chief execs of some of them not huge, some of them were only about 250 million US, so not huge, but some of them were over $1 billion. But their market, providing that market was could afford them, was appropriate for them. So they left with a whole new sense of confidence. And I can think of another person, again, someone else in the States, who had a specialist offering for the finance sector. And a part of the finance sector, I won't say exactly which part of it. And they were quite interesting. They're actually a coach that dealt in dysfunctional behaviors, was they like to call it elite performance. But basically it was getting rid of dysfunctional behaviors. And they were only charging by the hour, which is the worst way to charge. So at the end of our work together, we actually worked out that they could show whether their work had had a material impact on the valuation of certain of their clients' firms. And they put in place a mechanism to be rewarded, not by becoming, instant millionaire, but far more handsomely than charging by the hour. So that's just a couple of examples of how I've helped. And there's, another client who was actually not only getting that trusted pipeline of conversations, but also getting published as well in a recognized management journal, which helped boost their business, got other chief exec, got on the radar of other chief execs who didn't know them. So that's just a couple of examples how I've helped.
Great stories there. I think most clients, and I think you advise your clients that providing primary research. Like I always love going to my clients with a primary research plan. We're going to sample the market. We're going to call people. Or we're going to survey them and say, get some actual data to figure out what we should be doing. We can't just be hypothesizing in a room with a whiteboard. We need to have some actionable data. We talked to 50 people and 40 of them said this. 50 qualified people, and we asked them a structured set of questions, and this is what they told us. And that speaks volumes, right? Because it's really hard for someone to refute that, right? To say, oh, well, I think that's something else is the case, or I think that your methodology is wrong. It's like, well, great, but do you have competing data to refute it? No? Okay. Like that's it. So often I will give the executives the armaments to go and state their case and say, no, this is actually something we absolutely should be investing in because we're hearing it so at such a deep level. And I imagine for your clients, giving them the tools to present those findings is also part and parcel to how you deliver value for them.
Yeah, based on some of the research I conducted of corporate decision makers at C-level in various size firms around the world, mostly in Europe and in the States, was that 94% of decision makers consider an advisor's original insights crucial when assessing their suitability to work with that company. And 86% are likely to meet a potential advisor after engaging with their relevant, original, and authoritative insights. So it's all about adding value through insights. So in the recognized authority formula, we use a co-creation approach, which employs something in social psychology, which is called the IKEA effect. So if you create something like a piece of IKEA furniture, you put greater value on it than if you just went out and purchased whatever it was, a chair or a bed or whatever that item was.
Right.
And you can do the same with services. So your decision makers will feel part ownership of whatever is created and of those insights. So it's a part of the whole process is a gradual buy-in to the solution that consultant eventually proposes to the client.
And it's not only great, market research for that client to be able to bring to the table within their own organization. It's also great market research for your own firm. I can think of 3 different projects where I was sampling like learning and management executives about what are critical roles, skill gaps in the banking industry. And that is very relevant to a client I'm working on right now, where they're working on trying to fill those gaps. And it's sort of like, I'm glad I have that, that 2-for-1, where, I can say with pretty data-backed authority that this is an area that companies are absolutely willing to pay money to fix and to try to right the ship in terms of professional development. And I have the data to back it up. It's very helpful with that. For people that say, oh, my network's not big enough to sample the market, I think you mentioned getting published, and I think partly why we're doing this content is to also enhance our own brands. But how do you help someone get off the fence and say, you're right, I need to actually spend some portion of my time creating that thought capital or sending out those surveys to my network, both to know what to offer them, but also to stay in touch? Is there any particular message you would have for that audience?
Well, 100%. If you've got your own solo professional services firm or your own boutique professional services firm, you need to treat it like a business. And in any business, you have functions. And okay, sure, if you're solo, all those functions you're going to do yourself. Some of them you're going to outsource. One of the key ones is actually the marketing function. You are also the marketeer, therefore you need to. It is just, it's not a yes or no. You've just got to do it. But you've got to consider it to be part of the fabric of your business to increase your authority, to increase your conversation flow. Do not consider it something that's separate. If you think it's something that's separate, you don't need to do it. I guarantee you can have a pretty awful business. So it's got to be integrated, and you've got to think of your business as a business. So simply do it. That's the message. Do it.
This is something we talked about when we worked together a few years ago, was that marketing. And I tell my clients this too, like they might have a great product. You have to have that marketing or that sales hat on. You can't outsource. I mean, you can certainly work with marketing professionals that are, specialty experts in social media or in SEO or some of those specific channels, but you need to be driving the strategy. You can't just wholesale say, just handle it for me. I think that's something where when you think about product market fit, you can maybe get great credentials in the product space and even good customer listening, but your market development functions, do you have a hit list? Do you have a rank order, way of qualifying your leads to know where to spend 90% of your time and what 10%, are going to be driving most of your revenue and most of your margin versus the long tail that are kind of just kicking the tires or not big enough yet, or, you get better about knowing where to play. But I think you do have to, both coach consultants and also coach, small and large firms. You can't play everywhere.
No, you're dead right.
And you won't be happy doing it.
The key is to decide what not to do. There are certain things you're just not going to have time to do.
Yeah.
So you've got to focus on those priority items that are really going to boost your authority and also your business development, whatever is the priority for you. And that could mean don't chase that shiny new thing. Don't suddenly think you've got to post on LinkedIn every 6 hours or whatever some people do, because if you're targeting
Yep.
if you're targeting large,
It's a recipe for burnout for sure.
they're probably not on LinkedIn anyway. So decide what you're not going to do. Keep to that list,
Right.
and decide what you're going to
sense.
do. And as you were saying earlier, you need to have that outreach strategy, whether it's 10 conversations a week or 10 outreach messages to past clients, whether it's something on the admin of the business. Maybe that's the thing you do on a Friday afternoon when you're not going to be talking to clients. So it's a matter of sort of sectioning off your time, being strategic. Sure, you're going to be maybe 20% opportunistic with opportunities of something that comes your way and it doesn't quite fully align to what you do. You're going to be a fool to turn it down if it's an attractive piece of business you can do. But overall, 80% stick to your strategy, stick to your sweet spot. And if you focus in a particular niche, then the quote does apply. The riches are in the niches. But don't think you're always. It's a bit like being in a prison cell. You can't move out from it. You can, because what you're going to find is if you're delivering fantastic value for clients in your niche, they're going to make the assumption, they're going to give you a halo and think you could do other things within an organization. And I can think of one experience from my own advisory business. When I had my CEO advisory business, I had one particular client who was not a huge firm. It's a 30 million revenue software firm in the fintech space, whereas they had a problem with their top team, which was one of my specialities, to get them aligned to the strategy. I did that work. They were really pleased with it. I did some other related work for them around strategy implementation. And then they asked me if I could be their fractional CMO. And I thought, I've never been a CMO. I had a marketing job way back in my corporate career. And actually, that sounds quite interesting. So for a couple of years, I spent, whatever it was, 4 or 5 days a month being a fractional CMO. And marketing is blinding glimpses of the obvious and applied common sense. I loved it. But that was nothing to do with my niche, but I had a fantastic time doing it.
That's something to think about with your own program, that a lot of your clients would love fractional roles or interim executive type roles, where they don't want to be there necessarily for the long haul, but they can at least spin up the company's processes or mature them a little bit more, so that the company has, once they recruit someone for that role, all the game plans, the boiler, the SOPs, the engine under the hood, a handbook, if you will. And I think that's something where a trusted authority, a recognized authority, can really help say, here's what good looks like, and I'm going to implement a system that someone can slide, and certainly customize it to their own. But at least a lot of that hard work is done, on the outset, and it only just improves your value, right? When you come in and say, hey, you're doing this, and I will get that started for you and get these flywheels spinning. And, clients love that. What makes for a successful transition before your program and after? Are there particular before and after transition points? I know you mentioned a few before, but are there 2 or 3 that you see clients struggling with this and then they walk away with that?
I'd say a transition onto the program, if it's going to be successful, one, they've got to be prepared to change, number one. I know it sounds real fundamental, but not everybody is willing to change. They've got to be prepared to follow a process. And if they start to do, it's fine to make your own, do some deviation. If you do too much deviation, it simply ain't going to work. And you've got to be coachable. You've got to take advice. That doesn't mean you need to accept it. And there's nothing more I love than a debate with someone. But at least have your ears open So I think that's the key for coming on.
Yeah.
And when someone departs, it's all about keeping things going and keep being consistent and having inner confidence that your success will continue after the program as well.
Mm.
And you won't start to revert to old ways. And you will have confidence in whatever it is, that problem, that niche you're involved in. So I think coming on the program, it's about mindset, being adaptable, being coachable, prepared to change and prepared to follow a process. And about afterwards, it's consistency.
Mm.
And I remember there's one client in France I was working with. Within a week of implementing part of one of the modules, module 5, he had 7 meetings with decision makers. And someone else in the program said, well, how did you do that? He said, well, I did exactly what Roger said. I stopped thinking and followed the process. Okay, he was thinking. He's an extremely bright man. He was thinking, but he did put faith in the process, getting the results. So they were some of the sort of the key elements for a successful transition before and also after the program as well.
That's great. And I think you're making a good point that good advisors, and I even tell my executives, clients this as well, you have to be willing to let your ideas go. I think you'll see that a lot with middle managers or maybe earlier career people really struggle. Like, no, I need to get my ideas out there. I was even working with the BCG team once at a publicly traded FTSE one of the largest companies in Germany, and they were just so hell bent on being the smartest people in the room, and we need to get our ideas out into the client. And it's like it's not really about you. It's not really about your ideas, and you have to be willing to be overruled, because I often tell my clients, your business better than I do. Like, you don't have to implement the things I'm saying. It just I act as an objective of here's what I'm seeing from my other clients, and here's how these things might apply to you and these things might not apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to have some willingness to change some of their behavior, but you can't expect them to wholesale do everything that you're advising them to. And that's the role of an advisor, to demand that.
I can remember probably, maybe 10, maybe even 12 years back now, when I was talking to a client, how they regretted taking on a very well-known global strategy firm, simply because the behaviors of one of the lead partner wanted to be the smartest person in the room. They didn't feel listening to them and came across as arrogant. They completed the project because they were committed to it. The client corporation was committed to it, but they didn't get the strategy house did not get the follow-on work. And that's all to do with behaviors.
I can see that.
And I think that's key when you're with a client, not to be the smartest person in the room. Have confidence, have some executive presence about you, but be humble about it. Don't try to claim that you're the fountain of all knowledge, because fundamentally, sure, you've got expertise, but there's someone else who's smarter than you out there for sure. And you're not paid to be the smartest person. You're paid to help them solve that problem.
Right. I mean, it's important, I think, as an advisor to have a point of view. Don't be caught flat-footed and don't want to sound uninformed. But you don't have to be so attached to that point of view that it detracts from your brand. And I have been that consultant that the client hires after firing big name consulting firm and saying, they were just trying to ram unnecessary projects down our throat, or they were not flexible to our needs and receptive to what we were telling them. And I told my interns this summer, and I tell all of my clients, with sales, they have to know who you are, they have to like you, and they have to only once those two things happen can they trust you. So if you lose the plot, right? If you go straight to it's about me and about how smart I am, well, maybe they know who you are, but certainly don't like you. And if they don't like you, they're not going to trust you. And I see many consulting firms fall flat on their face by not recognizing that. And it's great for my business, but But yeah, definitely had to pick up the pieces a few times. So Roger, how do you see the world of advisory services, changing over the next few years? Like what are some changes you're seeing in the market?
Um, good question. I see the market becoming more competitive as more people seem to be rejecting the corporate environments. I think it's even more important to become recognized for something if you're starting on your journey or if you're already on your journey for sure in that competitive market. People think AI is this huge threat that's going to do everyone out of business. And sure, it's going to do some people out of business, particularly if you're an analyst or you're doing something very technical. But at the end of the day, people still want people contact. It's not all going to be coming from AI. And you should see that as an opportunity, as an enabler, not something you should be
Right.
fearful of, and embrace it. Use it to its full to improve your efficiency, to improve what you do for clients. So I would say coming up, the main thing without doubt is it's going to become even more competitive. I think business, the shape of business models will change. If you think about it, if you had a knowledge-based business, you could just be the person in the center employing all these fractional people, all these freelancers. That time may come in a few years' time. And you could be, if you wanted, that person in the middle, or you could be the supplier. Both are great positions to be in. And because of these changes, I would say it's even more important to actually establish yourself in a market. And people often think that I need to know thousands of people, I need to be networking the whole time. But the reality is you don't, because, and again, applies today as it will do in the future. Just think, to have a really respectable income, how much do I actually need to earn? Pay the taxes, to have a nice retirement, all the rest of it. How many projects do I actually need, or how many clients, long-term clients do I need to actually achieve that? You probably find it's not that many. For some clients, it's only 3 to 5. For others, it could be around 10. But it's not ginormous numbers.
Yeah.
So don't get panicked if you see lots of people joining the market. Keep your focus.
Yeah, that makes sense. I call it write once, run everywhere. That if there's activities you can do that reach a broader audience, with the same amount of effort, do those versus having a whole bunch of meetings booked. Meetings on the calendar are important, but if you can write a piece of thought capital, or if you can write a book, or be a speaking slot at conferences, I've had for both my business and for my clients, is a great way to get your name out there. You're on stage, and you say that talk once, you record it, you can put it online, right? Like there's a lot of that sort of leverage you can get from those sorts of activities. But I think to your point earlier about how has the market changed, and I've seen this too. Like the companies that really leaned into a flexible or remote policy. A lot of my clients are mid-50s. They have kids. Return to office, I think, has been part and parcel pretty big disaster for a lot of firms, because they actually, it's a great way to, maybe do a calculated layoff. But I think you lost a lot of your best people, best performing people, because they didn't want to put up with the hour and a half commute to an office that, was just endless rows of beige cubicles with shitty coffee. It's if you are going to mandate a return to office, there has to be a clear why. Like, there has to be, if for some firms it makes sense, right? If there's some clear, an engineering firm and you have to send people out to the field, or, have certain trainings in the office because there's a certain dynamic that you need to, teach live. Okay. But that shouldn't be every day. That shouldn't necessarily be every week. And if you do that, you should make your offices an attractive place to spend the day, not some horrid scene out of Office Space, or you saw that movie probably years ago. It's just and I think a lot of executives don't think in those terms. Oh, what do you mean? Our office park out in the middle of nowhere is great. We have a corporate cafeteria. And it's like, yeah, I don't know about you, but I kind of stopped liking cafeteria food when I no longer was a student. So I've seen some companies actually change their headquarters and go to a more an urban model or a distributed office model. So they maybe have like a home office and then a couple of like satellite smaller offices, or a WeWork subscription even for some of them has worked really well. And that way they don't really have to think about being in the business of providing that space. They can say, here are the approved hubs. And, if you can get to one of those hubs at least a few times a month, we're good. And I think that's a more long-term sustainable model than just 3 days a week. That's such a ham-fisted way.
No, and I think that's what you're saying is also true for solo professionals as well, because you got to recognize if you spend your whole day in your office, you're going to go stir crazy. You got to enjoy this new lifestyle you have, and whether that's going for a cycle ride if the weather's nice, or going to the gym, but making an effort to meet peers during the business day and putting some variety in your business day as well, rather than just staying solely focused here. And enjoy that new lifestyle. I play squash 2-3 times a week at lunchtime. I rarely work after about 2:00 on a Friday. So get the balance and enjoy the balance.
Actually, if you'd asked me 5 or 10 years ago, I said I would never want to commute again. And now I've actually engineered a delightful 20-minute walk down a tree-lined boulevard to the WeWork near me. And that's also a great source for me to meet potential clients. I actually have someone I'm talking to right now that I've met through that sort of environment. And so I think setting that up as a necessary part of running your own business, that you can't just be glued to your desk, that it shouldn't feel like a prison, and you have options. So I have a WeWork that's great for bad weather, and a WeWork that's great when it's sunny out, has like a bigger outdoor area and more sunlight. And so that way I have a little bit of optionality or a little bit of choice in, what kind of office do I want today? I live in Germany, so sometimes the weather can be a bit, and you live in London, I'm sure it's the same. It's like, it's not as nice out. I'll take the tram today. But at least it's something to get you out of the house. And
it sounds like you got a nice balance of your working day.
Yeah. Who is not your target audience? So who is your program not for?
That's a good question. Who's it not for? It's not for someone who loves selling. If someone wants to go sell, forget it. This is not a program for those who are consummate salespeople. It's not a program for someone who wants to get rich quick. It takes time, it takes effort. It's not for someone who doesn't want to put the effort in. It is not for someone who has a pure commodity offering. What you offer needs to be high value to a client. And they're probably some of the key elements of who it's not for. And it's not for someone who wants to give up easily. Someone who thinks business is just this walk in the park. It ain't. There's always going to be setbacks, but you need to overcome them. But it's having the right mindset to know that you can overcome them. So I say there's some of the key sort of attributes of for someone who it's not for. And it's also not for someone who's not prepared to invest in their business. And there's quite a few people, I think, who actually treat their business as if it's their personal bank account, which, sure, it informs your personal bank account, but it's quite separate. And so it's not for those who don't treat their business as a business and so aren't prepared to invest to get a result.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way a few years ago, and it felt, I was underinvesting in my own business, and I learned to actually spend more deliberate money in the right places. I hired a chief of staff actually, and I know a number of consultants that hired an assistant, and not cheap, but it is a great accountability partner. Again, they check your own biases. Hey, I don't think this makes sense to me. You might want to tell the client that, and it also allows you to kind of delegate some of the work that you maybe don't want to do. I think that's also been very helpful, just to see, I really hate invoicing, for instance. Like that's like one of my kryptonite is I always wait too long, and it's great to have someone who can just say like every month, the invoices go out and I don't have to worry about it, and it's there. And then you also mentioned AI as one of those emerging trends. I tell clients, use AI, and I use it this way myself. use AI as a pressure test to test your own assumptions. Don't have it drive strategy for you, because it's going to give you some canned answer. I did a nice demo where I asked it to tell me the chances of success and I want to start a bead store and cuckoo clock repair shop in San Francisco. I think I have a competitive edge in that space. I just know how to sell beads better than most. It was super optimistic. Oh yeah, the bead market is growing, and cuckoo clocks are a very niche area. It's good to get into niche area. Horrendous business advice. But when I do come up with a framework or proposal, I do run it through AI just to see what am I missing? What questions would a client that fits these parameters likely ask when seeing this proposal? That's a great way of using AI as a tool. You're driving the ship; it's not driving you. But it's not. I always really caution any company that wants to outsource a critical function to AI. You're going to get the same or worse results than like India. And there's certainly many Indian firms that do particular niche things super well. I have two firms in my affiliate partners that when there's a specific client need that they excel at, I am more than happy to shine the light on them. And I think that's true for your network too. That as an authority, there's a bit of along with people not necessarily staying attached to their own ideas, also knowing when I'm not the expert in that area. I'm not an employment law expert, but I know one. Mm. Would you like an introduction? Yeah. Clients love that. Yeah. And you can often set up a finder's fee or affiliate referral network. And so I think for a lot of individual practitioners or people running their small boutique firms, that is both necessary, but it also enhances your brand value, that you're not trying to be the everything expert. And a client will, you're not an attorney, you're not a financial expert necessarily, you're not an HR guru, but you should have people in your network that are those. And I think I've met a number of people through your program that are those, and I'm more than happy to make that intro when a really hairy enterprise sales thing comes up and it's out of my depth. Like I know who to call. So we're getting to the end of the podcast here. I just have some more call to action or sort of next step questions. How do you usually enroll clients? Like, what does the typical enrollment process look like? A typical engagement length look like?
Well, typically, a client before they make contact has probably consumed quite a bit of content. Maybe they've read my book, maybe they watch videos, LinkedIn posts, whatever it is. And I think that's important for any consultant. You're going to let people think or get people to know you before they meet you. And that's very important. And then we start off with a very simple, brief call. It's about 15 minutes in duration. It's a roadmap call. Creates an awful lot of value for the potential clients to give them clarity on where they're going, what roadblocks. And then if we both decide we want to move forward, we either extend the time of that call or we schedule another one where we delve much deeper into their business. So they're not sales calls as such. They're more of a sort of a consultative process to see where I could actually add value if they joined the program. And then there is a very simple onboarding process. Some clients like to work with me one-on-one, and others like to join the program where people can now join at any time. Before, I know when we worked together, it was cohort-based. It's now people can join at any time. So they join it. It's 90 days in duration. And as I say, there are guaranteed results at the end of it. And you are guided through the content online via an online platform. And there are group calls during the week as well. And people can ask questions on the community platform. So someone's always close to advice or a helping hand or helping brain if they need it. So that's the typical approach. And results they can get from the program, again, it's a matter of, as I said earlier, meeting someone where they are. For some, it's more clarity. For some, it's understanding their positioning or complete refresh. Fundamentally, what the majority of participants want from all the surveys I've done of clients is to have a trusted pipeline and to be able to win a project without selling. There's a little bit of persuasive words you've got to use, so it's not all just magic dust, but there's no hard selling involved and no pitching at all, zero pitching.
Yeah.
So that's the fundamental way to join the program, or how people do join the program.
Oh, that's great. And tell me more about the community platform, because I think that's a relatively new addition, but I think it's a really important one for someone, starting their own practice or wanting to develop their practice further, is having that sort of access to people in similar positions. And I think it's a great offering that you have. So tell me more about that platform.
So community elements of the platform is designed for people to get assistance when they want it. It's also designed for, reaching out to others on the program, and maybe there's a partnership opportunity there. It is not for individuals to sell their services to others. And I think for many, particularly if they're transitioning and they're starting off for the first time, it can be a bit lonely out there, and they want some like-minded souls.
For sure.
And they get that from the community platform. So that's how it operates. Very straightforward. And I'm on it every day, answering questions, giving insights, and adding more tips and whatever it is people would like on it.
No, that's brilliant. And I think that provides a lot of value, both from a partnerships and affiliate standpoint, but also just the psychological journey that comes with running your own business, and knowing that you're not alone with these problems. Like, I've had clients not pay me on time, and do I stress about that? Like, no, that's part of it. You should change terms in your proposal to reflect, or your statement of work to reflect that, right? I'm usually a net 15 or net 30 if it's a large company, but like having some early payment incentives and late payment negative incentives often helps set expectations. They've never gotten activated once I put them in, but the payment started becoming more prompt when they were in the contract. So that's been helpful. And then how do people find you? What's the best way to get in contact with Roger Jones?
Best way to contact Roger Jones is simply to pop along to my website, which is rogerejones.com, ROGEREJONES.com. And people will be able to contact me via the website, or people can hunt me down on LinkedIn. You have to use my middle initial, Roger E. Jones, and you're welcome to connect with me there or join my LinkedIn newsletter. And if you come to the website, you can take
that's great idea.
A short scorecard, a short quiz to find out where you are with your business at the moment. See,
that's fantastic, and that's a great way to provide straight value straight out of the gate. Like I have a diagnostic form for my clients as well, and it helps both you be a better advise them on how you can best work together, but it also, I think, provides immediate value to clients and customers. And so I've incorporated that into my own process of having what can I do, very quick hit to just say, hey, here's where we can provide the most value. And then the last question is, Roger, what's next for you?
Next for me is to continue growing the program. The Recognized Authority Formula will be the premier, the most sought after program for solo corporate consultants and coaches worldwide. Delivering value, the aim is to 10,000 participants or those in the ecosystem a year within the next 5 years. So it really is to keep adding value to clients. I absolutely love the work I do. I love meeting people. I've always enjoyed working internationally. So in a typical week, or even a typical day, I could be in Germany, the States, the Middle East, or somewhere else in Europe, or even South America. Absolutely love the work. Love helping clients find their way so they have the business they love. And I'm simply going to continue it.
That's great. I mean, Roger, you've built a tremendous business helping, hundreds, if not thousands of people at this point. And I see it. We had previous calls, the number of INSEAD educated professionals flocking to your program. It's just a testament to how you're doing it right by your clients, and how you really have spent the time and effort to really think about how to drive value for your clients and make them shine. So I really want to appreciate you for coming on the podcast and sharing your story, because I think it's one worth telling.
Well, thank you, Eric, and I've enjoyed our conversation, and I've enjoyed working with you, and I always enjoy our conversations. So thank you very much indeed.
Yeah. Likewise, Roger. So thanks.